It's shocking.
Caitlyn Clark will be sidelined for at least 2 weeks
with a quad injury.
Footage has emerged how Caitlyn Clark got hurt.
Fouls her for the 4th time. It's cheating.
Many WNBA fans are calling out the referee problem.
The referees literally turned their back.
Nobody predicted that the league would oppose her at every turn in a few games, despite their claims that she would revolutionize the league and garner attention. Once the WNBA's most acclaimed rookie, Caitlyn Clark is now the most targeted player on the court.
Caitlyn Clark is the driving force behind the interest in the Fever and the interest in the WNBA.
Rookie Caitlyn Clark was subject to several intentional fouls.
And not only by the opposition, this wasn't merely a tough defense. What fans saw was something far more deliberate and riskier than merely a welcome to the pros gesture.
After every single game, WNBA players, fans, coaches are all complaining about the referees, and they have shown that they're not going to change anything because the referees continue to be horrible.
What began as missed calls escalated into clear no calls and harsh fouls that left Clark on the ground while the whistle remained silent. Game after game, Clark was pounded, shoved, and refused protection by the referees, who were supposed to police fairness.
Felines head coach Stephanie White, she was complaining about her team not getting a whistle, not being respected.
Suddenly, every shove that went unpunished, every hand check that was disregarded, and every time Caitlyn looked to the official for justice and received none, the league's golden ticket was sidelined with a quad injury, raising eyebrows and inciting resentment.
She will be out for 2 weeks minimum following a quad strain.
Caitlyn Clark and Sophie Cunningham going to the officials and trying to, ask for an explanation of what had just occurred. That official completely stonewalled them.
But here's the surprise that nobody anticipated. Reports are now revealing the unpleasant reality behind the officiating system. It all began to appear more than coincidental and more personal.
This is a WNBA problem, and as more and more eyeballs are watching this league, it becomes growingly an issue. The officiating feels you never have a true grasp on what it's going to be.
Many of the referees hardly have any G competition experience, and they get their rule interpretations from a secret council of general managers and coaches who decide how physically demanding the competition should be.
The referees are not listening to them. They're not listening to the coaches. They're not listening to the players. They're not listening to the fans. They're listening to their stakeholders. That's why I keep saying nothing is going to change till the mindset and whoever's running all of this, the stakeholders, governance, whoever these people are.
Us along with Caitlyn, she simply happens to be in the midst of a storm where politics, power, and profit clash. The WNBA is facing an unavoidable fire after weeks of growing dissatisfaction, viral reaction, and public protest from coaches, players, and fans.
If this injury does anything, it should be a wake-up call to the WNBA, the Players Association, the team owners, that just like that, all this fanfare, all this interest, all this newfound attention on the league can disappear overnight.
Additionally, with lawsuits pending and rumors circulating that the referees were never neutral in the first place, this could be the turning point. If you're a true fan of Caitlyn Clark, you may wonder how far the league will go to silence the star on whom they have built their empire.
Caitlyn Clark is being roughed up, but the physical wear and tear on Caitlyn Clark, I'm not surprised that 2 weeks into the season, she's already got an injury.
When Caitlyn Clark joined the WNBA, the expectations were extremely high, not only for her performance, but also for the energy she would bring to a struggling league. At Iowa, she was known for her toughness and was unstoppable, setting records, drawing millions of viewers, and redefining the modern game.
2024 was a year of unprecedented growth in viewership in the WNBA, a substantial amount of which can be attributed to Caitlyn Clark, who took the basketball world by storm after an all-time college career.
Who had appeared in 185 consecutive games between her career at Iowa and her time with the Indiana Fever. 139 games with the Iowa Hawkeyes. She never missed one.
And for a while it succeeded. Ticket sales and broadcast numbers surged. But what came next was not joy, but animosity. From the very beginning of her professional debut, it was evident that the opposition teams weren't merely attempting to defeat her, they were also attempting to shatter her.
Caitlyn Clark, somebody who was responsible for 26.5% of all WNBA economic activity last season, including revenue from merchandise, ticket sales, and television.
Caitlyn Clark out at least 2 weeks waited, but can the WNBA maintain without her? Can the WNBA pack arenas draw ratings?
Clark endured a level of physicality in game after game that felt more like punishment than professional defense. Players pushed her off the court, shoved her off, cut her, and knocked her to the ground, and officials allowed it all to happen. It didn't matter if the contact was dangerous or even excessive, the whistle rarely came.
The referees just exposed their hand so bad, bro. I mean, they just didn't care no more. They didn't care. The world was watching how bad the cause was. They didn't care at all. They was going to get their issue off against the Fever no matter what. And I'm here to tell you, that's exactly what went down, bro. They have an agenda against Caitlyn Clark.
Clark was left on her own and had to adapt to the league's narrative, whereas any other top rookie may have expected some protection. However, why was the adjustment simply one-sided?
Said the reason that people are complaining is because they haven't watched the WNBA before, and these are just new fans who don't understand. But there's clearly an issue.
Caitlyn Clark was sidelined for at least 2 weeks due to a left quad strain after playing 35 minutes per game, despite clearly being exhausted.
Indiana Fever guard Caitlyn Clark has suffered a left quadriceps strain and will be out for a minimum of 2 weeks.
A devastating blow to the Indiana Fever and the WNBA's top attraction. But for many fans, it wasn't only a coincidental loss. Rather, it was the direct consequence of weeks of unrestrained contact, unrelenting violence, and league-sanctioned carelessness.
Caitlyn Clark appears to be hunted every game. She deals with physicality that no other player in the league is dealing with. The WNBA not stepping in to protect their cash cow, their only draw, their only star, and this is the end result.
This wasn't a given. This could have been avoided. The league's inaction and refusal to acknowledge the penalty made matters worse. No statements had been taken by Clark. I apologize. This was just another name on the injury report, but it was the face of the league's new age sideline, and it meant more than any other. Not because she was incapable of managing the stress, but rather because the system was unwilling to shield her.
It's the Caitlyn Clark disrespect. And what I mean by that is you've got somebody who is obviously the most popular player in basketball. You got somebody that I would argue may be a top 5 most popular athlete in the United States of America. All right. You got this athlete in a league that nobody's been watching, never turned a profit, and your system is broken against that team?
Even the opponents alluded to it. Fans and the media witnessed it, and now everyone is wondering why the WNBA's biggest star was left this vulnerable in the first place, and who stands to gain from keeping her off the court. Kelsey Mitchell. Her own teammate quietly encouraged Caitlyn to pay attention to her body, an implicit acknowledgement that Clark was persevering through something most players wouldn't.
Kelsey Mitchell said even if there is a injury, hopefully it's just, like a little nagging thing. And again,
take care of your body and just make sure you... I think recovery is everything. I think if you're in tune to your body, you know what you need. This is Caitlyn.
Referees aren't just inexperienced, they're underqualified. Some of them went straight from officiating high school games to the WNBA, missing important G League developments. These aren't elite-level officials with years of professional experience. They frequently learn on the job while officiating the highest stakes games the league has ever seen, and that inexperience is evident when it comes to managing the league's most talked about player. The more fans dug into the WNBA's officiating, the more unsettling the picture became.
For you guys, and they do not talk about it here. And that's why I also don't want us to personally attack some of these referees. I think they're doing their job. If they are hiring referees who basically didn't have any experience but high school refereeing jobs, and then they did a stint in the G League, like, these referees actually aren't. I gained and reconfirmed with myself that not much is going to change.
The fact that these officials aren't making their own decisions, however, is even more concerning. A competition committee, which consists of coaches, general managers, and stakeholders, not impartial parties, but those with a stake in particular. Results tells referees exactly how the game should be called. This isn't just conjecture. League insiders have revealed in interviews that referees are instructed on what fouls to highlight, what toughness to permit, and which play style best. reflects the league's image, not necessarily what's fair.
There's a committee for stakeholders, coaches, governors, and general managers, and that is saying what style of basketball they want to allow, and the referees are following that law.
The existing quote is threatened by Caitlyn Clark's arrival. She undermines the system by bringing a different tempo, spotlight, and degree of media attention. Her style conflicts with the slower, tougher physical game, and the committee appears to want the outcome, so she is punished on the court without any protection.
It took us halfway through the season. This year, it took us 4 games for Stephanie White to say, I've had enough.
I thought she got fouled. You know, I think it's pretty egregious what's been happening to us the last few games.
In the NBA or even college, contact that would cause immediate whistleblowing is waved off with no calls, no justice, just silence. And when she dares to ask the officials for answers, they brush her off. This bias is not paranoid, it has patterns.
Y'all see what's happening right here? That is a WNBA referee turning his back to Caitlyn Clark and the Fever. Oh my God. I mean, he literally got his back turned, ignoring Caitlyn. I mean, this is bad.
Clark repeatedly takes hits that aren't called, but her smallest touch results in instant whistles. Coach Stephanie White attempted to challenge one of those moments during a crucial game, but her challenge was blocked due to an obscure rule. Because she only had a reset and no full timeout, protecting the officials. Isn't that the kind of twisted rulebook enforcement that ruins trust in addition to costing games?
I thought she got fouled. You know, I think it's pretty egregious what's been happening to us the last few games. And I might be able to understand it if we were just chucking threes. And the disrespect right now for our team has been pretty unbelievable. So it's disappointing.
This isn't about 1 or 2 errors. Rather, it's about a flawed system in which referees respond to covert agendas rather than the game or fairness. The system itself, which appears desperate to control the narrative rather than safeguard its most valuable star, is targeting Caitlyn Clark in addition to defenders.
The only draw in your league, the only player capable of selling tickets, is potentially out for an extended period of time. What the hell are you gonna do now?
And it becomes increasingly evident that the crisis is not an accident the more that is revealed. Fans aren't the only ones raising the alarm. Players, coaches, and experts across are publicly pointing out the officiating crisis with Caitlyn Clark at its core. The league may intentionally attempt to minimize the situation, but the response is exploding. This is about fairness, not preference.
In that situation. And I understand the frustration that I think comes the most with officiating is the inconsistencies of officiating. But listen, this is not unique to the WNBA.
People begin to raise difficult questions and demand answers when referees permit a celebrity who receives record-breaking attention to be repeatedly given cheap shots. With the game on the line, one of the most talked about moments occurred. And during the Fever versus Liberty showdown, replays from all angles clearly showed that Clark drove to the hoop and was fouled by Natasha Cloud contact. The game is over with no whistle, no call.
Very clear foul.
It wasn't.
By Natasha
It's
Cloud.
a foul right here. That's a foul.
We are always going to get controversy. Here's the thing. Most refs aren't going to blow the whistle.
The referees simply walked away after Clark and her teammates quickly challenged them and begged for an explanation. This was a statement to the entire crowd, not just Clark, and it wasn't an isolated instance. The whistle doesn't function the same way for everyone. Coach Stephanie White tried to challenge a soft foul on Lexi Hall moments earlier, but because she didn't have a full timeout league, rules blocked her from even initiating a challenge fans who didn't know the rule assumed. White dropped the ball in reality. Her hands were tied by a system designed to shield officials from scrutiny.
All right, when that foul took place, CBS said she's got a challenge left. Well, it didn't matter. She couldn't use it. Stephanie White could not challenge that foul call on Lexi Hall, the one that led to the game-winning free throws from Sabrina Ionescu, because she didn't have a timeout. You need a full timeout, not a reset timeout, to initiate the challenge. Now, my issue with that is it would have been nice if the CBS announcers hadn't even brought up the challenge.
Again, the athletes were left exposed while the refs stayed protected behind technicalities. The frustration has overflowed far beyond Indiana. Brittany Greer interrupted a live halftime interview to yell out the refs on national TV. Other coaches have called the officiating rude and egregious in post-game pressers.
There's clearly a problem. If it's not just one team, also, by the way, it's not just the Indiana Fever. I know it's been the biggest story this week. Brittany Griner left a sideline interview to go yell at the refs.
The complaints aren't just emotional, they're strategic players, and coaches are pointing out that the rules aren't being applied equally, and the inconsistency is killing the flow of the game. But the WNBA isn't listening. They're brushing off the criticism as growing pains from new fans unfamiliar with the league's physical play style. That excuse doesn't hold up. Physicality isn't the issue, lack of consistency is the second Caitlyn Clark comes on the floor. The rule book. Changes, she's officiated differently, she's challenged more aggressively, and when she fights through it, the officials ignore the damage until her body gives out.
I did notice in the Liberty game, Caitlyn Clark's shots were all very short, so it was showing that she wasn't like getting off, and she was having a difficult time making those threes, and a lot of explosiveness from those three-point shots does come from your legs.
Now sidelined with a quad injury, she's the face of a league scandal that refuses to fade. Not only are those speaking out supporting Clark, but they are also revealing a culture that penalizes excellence and promotes silence. The more Caitlyn Clark succeeds, the more opposition she encounters, not only from rivals, but also from the very system meant to safeguard her. The backlash isn't going away, rather it's growing because the league underestimated something strong. Caitlyn Clark never asked for preferential treatment. Instead, she asked for the same standards that every player deserves.